Welcome to SQL Star 2022, and thank you so much to the organizers. And I'd like to welcome all attendees wherever you are. We welcome you and thank you for joining us today. As you guys know, my presentation is related to advanced data preparations with SQL. So there will be tons of data. And however, I'm going to give you the mindset because most likely people forgot about the procedures, and I'm going to walk you through that. Before I dive into the main topic, let me introduce. My name is Jean-Joseph. I am based out of New Jersey, originally from Haiti. I've been in IT for over 19 years. I started my career as a network administrator. Then after that, I moved to database administration and development. After that, I moved to data engineering. I'm a data engineer. I'm a Microsoft. Who don't know me, I'm the founder and main organizer of data-driven community. Under data-driven community, we have focus on data and analysis and visualization. We also have feature data driven that is focused on the growth of AI. We do have a third one. It's not stable, but sometimes we meet, and the name is IT management and leadership. We create to have strong, do not have soft skills. Why we create this? We have a tons of our coworkers after they get promoted, their performance drop down because they don't have any soft skill like leadership, emotional intelligence, management skill. They don't have that. So we created this group to support those. On my free time, I'm a big fan of fishing. I love going out to eat. I'm a father of 4 kids. I have 3 boys and 1 stepdaughter. I enjoy listening to audiobooks. I love going out to the movie. If you guys want to connect with my community, feel free to scan this code. If you want to connect with me, feel free to scan this one. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, this is my personal Twitter account. Enough about me. So what we're gonna cover for today, we're gonna do a brief introduction to data analysis because we need to understand okay, the value of cleaning and transforming data, right? So I will revisit with you the 5 characteristics of data quality, and 80% of this presentation will be demo, okay? I will provide some useful functions for data preparations, and you guys, after this presentation, I guarantee you must be able to clean your data, in and out, but there's always room for improvement. And then if you guys feel like there's something I should touch base and I didn't, and I wouldn't, feel free, for example, to share your feedback, and there's gonna be, and I will also make sure that I leave time for Q&A. Let's, for example, analyzing the procedure for data analysis or science, correct? For business to make decisions, they have to put in place a process, correct? Let's analyze the first steps. Most likely people think of, for example, anytime when they have a request, the development is always the things people think for first. However, it should not be that way because there must be a procedure, steps to follow. So whenever you are seeing any data analysis or science procedure, these are the elements that I'm going to touch base with you. Number 1, you first have, for example, to gather information. So what I mean by within that procedure is to collect information. When you're collecting information, you need to identify and connect all your data. Once this is done, you will need to outline the key technical requirement, right, to achieve your goal. And then once this is done, that's when you're gonna think of selecting the right processes. Okay, so the second step is we have to extract that data. When you're extracting the data, you need to well define your data pipeline. So once you're defining your data pipeline, the application, the requirement will tell you what pattern should you follow. If you're gonna be dealing with near or real-time data plus batch processing, you think of Kappa. If you will be dealing with only live process, no, you think of Lambda. Sorry about that. If you will dealing only with, you think of Kappa because you don't want to go with the complexity when you're using Lambda. And then there will be a trade-off between ETL and ELT. Right. So once this is done, you designing your data pipeline, design it with respect, for example, to think of optimize. It has to be optimized for storage and compute. Sorry about that. And that's when you're gonna think of cleaning the data. This is where we're gonna spend most of our time. So when you're cleaning your data, you have to think of doing a test assumptions about values, data type, shape, and also about what we call destructing. For example, what I mean by if we think of the data type, if we take date for example, in USA the date format is different from Europe and from other country, even country that are near USA, correct? So shipping is most likely restructuring. So sometimes for you to make decisions out of your data after you clean it, you may need to reshape your data process. And you also have to identify error or outlier and then find missing data. Once this is done, that's when you're going to think of storing the data. When you're storing the consistency model, you have why? Because you will be dealing with distributed system. Okay, so you need to understand if consistency matter whenever you made a change. Okay, so that change have to be available across all replica or distributed systems. So that's mean, for example, you have to think of this, and you also need to think of protecting your data, because here's the thing: sometimes I think the data you can clearly see access and because some data most likely cannot leave Europe. For example, this is one example. The data may need to reside locally, so you need to understand that. So you need to understand the performance and scalability business will need, and this can impact cost and everything. And you have to think of reliability. So once this is done, so that's when you're gonna think of analysis, where people will go come and make all kind of decisions by using their own tools like Power BI. They can use Azure Machine Learning, Excel, Tableau, Python, R, even MongoDB aggregate framework. But in our case, where we will focus is this one. I just want you to give you the mindset, right? So here's the thing. What is data cleaning is all about, right? So if we're looking at, it's about removing duplicate or irrelevant observation, okay, fixing structural error, okay, removing unwanted outliers, and you have to handle missing data. Once this is done, there must be a validation occur, right? So at the end of all your process, you should be able to answer this question as part of your validation. Does the data make sense? If the data does not make sense, okay, so what should we do? Okay, to satisfy business need. the data follow the appropriate rules for its fields. We need to know that, right? Does it prove or disprove your working theory? Or does it bring any insight to light? You need to understand that. You also need to know, can you find trends in the data to help you form your next theory? If not, is that because of the data quality, data silo, or we don't have the data in-house? Should we go and buy that data from a third-party vendors, right, to satisfy business requirements? Okay, so now we cannot think of advanced data preparation mentioning the 5 characteristics of quality data. The first characteristic is that you have to think of validity. It tells you the degree to which your data conform to define business rule or constraints. You have to think of accuracy. So that's means you have to ensure your data is close to the true value. I like this one. Data is known. And then the fourth one, right there, really, as you can see, it's ensure your data is consistent within the same data set or across multiple data set. And then also there's uniformity, which tell you the degree to which the data is specified using the same unit of measures. Great. So what are the benefits? The benefit is that when you have a clean environment, it's increased productivity. With that level of great data quality, it's easy for business to make decisions. So that, and also there will be fewer errors. So that's mean your client will be happy and there will be less frustration. So that's really, for example, the value or the meaning of having a nice procedure to clean your data. So let's go to a demo, guys, for example. We're gonna go to some demo, but before we go to, we deep dive into code, as I mentioned, 80% of this presentation will be demo. And if you guys have any question, feel free to stop and I don't mind, okay? So this is a real example, but I for example, I did my best to come up with that interface kind of different because this is an old legacy where I used to work. They have an application. Employee ID is sensitive for them because the way their whole environment work, if they have access to a client ID, they can collect any kind of information from the client. So that tells you, we're gonna insert the data, right? We're gonna send that data to your FTP location. When you're loading that data, do not expect that data to be clean. So if that data is not clean, for example, you need to find a way to clean it. But there will be one table. The first table, anytime when we register a new customer, we done that. The business user will do that. They will create, insert the information, and it's gonna save into a table called customer lookups. So you're gonna have to get that information and then match it with the files that you are loading from your FTP that we share with you. And then all we need is to do a key lookup against that table and insert the correct name, first name and last name, plus the employee ID. So I can clearly see this is spelled wrong, and this will be easy to fix because this is my nickname, correct? Guess what happened, guys? What happened if you have millions of records? It's not gonna be easy to clean. What happened if you have something like that? Where for here we have good data. So this is the bad data. Sheriff spelled wrongly, as you can see. You can see Fairchild spelled wrongly. And you can clearly see, for example, we have Lee spelled wrongly here. And Lee require what we call a second manual validation. So sometimes we may need to send the data back to business for business to approve that. And you guys know what I'm talking about. And if you're looking at here, we also other issue as well, right? So what do you see? We have spelling mistake, we have incomplete name, we have suffix issue. So I'm not sure. I would love to make this part a bit interactive. If you guys don't mind, could you let me know how would you clean that data? Because you cannot use like, you cannot use equal, you cannot use anything. How would you uh, use that data? How would you clean that data using SQL? Feel free, guys, to drop your comment and say go. Feel free to read them for me. If there is any attendees, share the comments.
Okay, no questions at the moment.
Yeah, I'm just asking attendees to share their input. How would you clean that data? What step would you use to clean that data? I'm not sure if there's any attendees would love to say something. You guys can type if you don't mind.
Oh. So we have people, but no reaction for the moment.
Then that's in our case, we have session, fuzzy session. Fuzzy session is a technique of finding this approximately. So it doesn't have to be exact. When do you use fuzzy session? You use it when you're dealing with transpositions, geopic letters, extra letters, missing prefix and suffix on names, nicknames, last name, comma, first name, or vice versa. So that's when you're gonna use. Thankfully, Microsoft provides us two types of functions. The first one is Soundex. How does Soundex work, guys? It is, for example, an alphanumeric expression of character. Right? Be a constant, variable, or even a field name, right? Or a colon, and it will return a varchar. So the first character is that it's gonna convert, it's gonna grab your first character, and it will be on uppercase, even though it's lower to uppercase. The character, it's gonna be a number in that expression. So, and guess what happened? It is a collection sensitive, just for your information. And then after you upgrade, if you upgrade from 110, I would index or check constraint for you to use this. The second function is what we call difference. Difference is that you can clearly see it is an argument, it's require, for example, two expression. Each expression is, so if you're looking at here, and then you can clearly see, for example, it will return an integer data type, right? So how does it work? It will compare these two Soundex expression. It will return an integer value, and that value vary from 0 to 4. So if it's 0, so that means it's weak. It may not be the exact word that you're looking for, but if it's 4, so that's a great indicator that that could be the exact word. As I mentioned, difference in Soundex have collation sensitivity, just for your information. Great. So now let's go to a main demo. Let me go to my my system. So what I'm going to do, let's go with searching. So what I'm going to do is let me create the lookup table, and I will re-explain it again. So if you're looking at, this is the lookup that anytime when there's a new customer or contact, so business user have to register that client first. Okay, so when they register else from other application screen will point, all they will share with you is the first name, last name, and then they're gonna give you all the data plus emails and everything. This is just a simple example, just to demo what we have for our company. So here's the thing. The second one is, consider this for example from your FTP, the data that you load from your FTP. If you're looking at here, we have the first, we have last name, we have the email and the phone number, right? Okay. So if you pay close attention, so you can clearly see the sheriff is wrongly spelled. You can clearly see Fairchild is wrongly spelled. Okay. Then to to the final destination. The final destination is this guy. If you empty, so let's consider this is a new environment. Okay. So now guess what happened? Let's go and analyze our environment. So we spoke about these functions already, right? So there's no need to remind ourselves, but we can do a quick demo. If we're looking at Soundex, how does it work? If you're looking at here, it's equal. What I like about this is that even though if we put this one lower s, it will convert this to uppercase, as you can see. So now let's use our both tables, guys. If you're looking at here, this is our both table. This is the lookup table where business user register a new client, and then this from our FTP, we load that data into our stage environment. So we need to bring this data. That's all we need. Okay. The contract number, and then, for example, the amount due and everything. So if you think of this guy, right? So what I'm doing here, this is my lookup table that the company generated, and then this is the data, which is the stage table. Doing here, I energize name with the help of Soundex. So that's when if the number match, the value match, there's a 4% to be the same. If you're looking at here. So when I do this guy, you can clearly see this is my lookup table, and then this is the data that I need. Okay, so if you're looking at here, this is, there's a potential misspelling words. So now I can go here and insert that data into my table. When I insert it, if you remember, this was empty. Remember, I have 18 row return before I execute this. If you're looking at here, the stage have 19 rows. Okay, if you're looking at here, this one have, for example, 19 rows. So that means there's something going on. So just for information, because we're gonna go over this. So if we're looking at here, we were able to give the data, bring the data with the help of Soundex with no mistake. Business happy. But guess what happened? There is one record that require a manual validation, and we have to reach out to business to do that. But before, whenever you're doing any data cleaning that require an automated validation and a manual validation, I would not suggest you to use Soundex. Instead, I would suggest you to use what we call difference. Let me explain difference to you. If we're looking at everything sounds the same, and then this is 4. And if it's 4, there's a 4%. If you're looking at here, data, we can clearly see, you can see none of them works. And this is 0. Okay, perfect. So here is what I'm doing. Because this is required a third, for example, a second manual validation from business. If I use this one this way, it won't work, guys. If you use it this way, it's still the same like you use in Soundex. There will be 18 records returned. We still have it. We still miss 1 record. So that's mean the way this script return, we can automate this to load the data. But for business, a couple records that require business input or approval, disapproval. So that's mean. So with that said, I'll tell you what I'm doing here. I want you to pay close attention. I'm putting the same query into a CTE. It is the same query. The only difference is there are 2 more columns. So what I'm checking is that I'm checking when, for example, there's a case statement. If, for example, the difference number happened to be 4, I want this guy, and I'm gonna call this revisit. Okay, and then if the difference, if the last name happened to be 4 for that difference, I want this to be revisit. But guess what happened? Instead of equal to 4, I bring 1. I started from 3 and up because validation. So now what I'm doing, I'm selecting from here. Check what will happen. I have 19 records, but we don't need that because this data is already loaded. For example, to filter, bring back the one that is null. If you're looking at here, I can email this from business and ask business to validate this. Let's analyze this a little bit. I can clearly see from lookup name, I have Danielo. The first one, I have done. Even though this is match, we pick up this one because this looks similar, but we cannot pick up this one because the second character is P, as you can see, and the last 3 character has. So the double R won't be a big issue, but the second character is P. So that's mean there's no way this can be the same, but it could be business while typing, but we may need to get business approval. And then that's how you're gonna go within your process and send that email, send all the lists to business and let them know we were able to load the data. For some reason, we're gonna have to revisit and review and make sure that this data is valid. Are there any questions before I proceed?
So, no
No
question.
question.
Perfect. So let's go to the next demo. Okay. So the next demo is that. Give me 1 second. So let me go back to my slide deck. Hold on. Give me 1 second. If you're looking at sometimes we may not only correct. So we may need to, for example, reshape the data before we can go and make decisions, out of that data. We may end up to get that data this way and business want it this way. We may end up to get the data this way, and then business said instead of we keeping we separate each phone number with a comma. We want each one to be a different field because the application at that time allowed only 4 different phone numbers. So a client can have a maximum of 4 different numbers. Okay, so if we're looking at here, let's go to some demo. Okay, so give me 1 second. So now let's go to restructuring. If we're looking at, let's go to sales. Here, let me go and create that table if it exists. Okay, so let's create it. This is the data that we have. We have that data. We need to load that data. So now we're gonna have to restructuring that data. So they call it consultant. The consultant creates something like this. For me to reproduce. So what I did, you need to find the starting point. This is the starting point, okay? The reason why they call the consultant company to optimize the process. This at that time bring the ETL process from running of 12 hours to 5 hours. But the code require a lot of times to troubleshoot. Because of that, they say they need a different way to get that same thing done. So if you're looking at here, all we need here is the starting point. So from the starting point, we're able to do everything, correct? Guess what happened? So let's proceed. Playing, just give me 1 second, guys. I'm gonna tell the kids to quiet a little bit. Just give me 1 second. Just bear with me. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. So let's proceed. Okay. So now, if you're looking at here, when we execute this, they got it, and they got it with great performance. Do you understand? No one complained. Everybody is happy, correct? But to troubleshoot this it was about you can see how messy this could be. We only have 7 colon. You can see how big is this. Okay. So now guess what happened? We decided to go a different route. The way we go is that, and this is the same, just for information. This is the same thing. Okay. This is we're using all those complexity. So what we do, server to a higher, for example, version. We leverage as you can see. If you see, if you pay 7 row return for each one. What I'm doing here is that I am using I'm pivoting that data, and then for each column, and I ask them here. When I execute this, I was able to get the same value, and the processor it's at almost 50 minutes. It's increased. For example, if the process used to take 5 hours, it takes probably like 5 hours and 50 minutes. But you understand? So sometimes you may need to reshape your data, as you can see. Let's go and grab another one. Okay, so let's do phone numbers. And if you're looking at here, let's select this. Okay, perfect. So let me insert this here. If you this may want you to dynamically create a new column for each numbers. That's it. It's not easy for our user to read it. okay, especially for people who don't have great visions. So they want to split each one independently, bring off fun. So if you're looking at here, what I'm doing here is that, okay, let me select this first of all. I am leverage, okay, string split again. Okay, you can clearly see here, I have 4 numbers, I have 4 colon returns, and each one have 2 numbers, I have only 2 returns. If you're looking at here, I have 4, I have 4 returns, and here I have 1, I have 1 return. So what we done is that we pivot this and we mark colon 1, font 2, font 3, and font 4. And then when we select this one, we were able to get the data. And if you, in your case, if you have to dynamically do this, all you have to do is define a variable, count the number of comma, and dynamically populate your value. And sometimes you may need to reshape your, for example, let me come here. If you're looking at here, this is something, for example, I want to do. There's something you can pick. Is what we call business may want you to split this one into address, like I'm doing here. If you're looking at, we have address, we have city name, we have zip code. Instead of you using substring and car index name to do that, the way you do that, but things you need to know, pass name, you have to start with the first field require the max index. In our case, it was 4. We have 4, and you cannot go more than 4 colons. That's the limitation of pass name. And then the second colon will be 3, the third one 2, the fourth one is 1. When I execute this, you can clearly see I was able to do that. And this is much cleaner instead of using, for example, car and substring. So we can do what we call phone number. Phone number not here. Let me execute this. Correct. When I execute this, you should pay close attention. It's not formatting. And then this is the correct format. I can leverage concat, replicate. So, and then I minus have 9. When I execute this, the fancy way, but there will be performance impact. If you're looking at 0 millisecond, if you analyze it, but for this one, we can use, put in your mind, it's more readable, but there will be a penalty. Performance may impact. So if I execute this, you will see it will take a second to execute. So it's only one. If you're looking at it just for records, if you're dealing with million, okay, that's let's say if you add up, everything, it may take minutes or hours to do that transformation. So let's go and do some extra. If you're looking at here, so let's talk about car. When we're cleaning data, we're preparing data. What I have seen people doing is that, okay, there's things you have to understand. When you're dealing with car, start. You cannot use replace to clean that data because this only ASCII code can override that data. So I'm going to show this with you. What I have seen people done, if you're looking at this, I have, for example, curtain, which is new line or line breaker. and I also have tab. I can clearly see this because the demo done by me, correct? So what I have seen people done is that they execute for what we call replace. And then when they say replace, this guy like this to make sure they've done something great. And when they faces this, the data, you didn't clean the data. So when they push that data to production, when business running report, guess what happened? So business say the data is not work. What I have seen other developer done, they use space. If you're looking at when they use space, and then it's still the same. If I do space, and then it's not cleaning. Even though you see it this way, it's not cleaning. I'm gonna prove it to you guys. When you're cleaning that data, I like people to leverage all kind of features just to make sure whatever you're doing is follow business expectations. So, for example, let me comment this out. If I change this from grid to text, if I execute this, you can clearly see the data we didn't clean the data. It was not clean. So with that said, the best way to do this is to leverage what we call we have to use car 13, which is carriage return, and car 10, which is line breaker. Or for example, I was able to clean that data. Things that you need to know. And then we spoke about string the shape of the data. Okay, if you're looking at here, let's say if they want us to group this, okay, let me bring this to grid for us to see. Yep. We can, business want us to aggregate this by country and age, okay, by country, just by country. How the best way to do that? So if we're looking at here, we can, for example, think of grouping all mail by country. We can see Russia have 5, USA have 4, and then Mexico have 1, Brazil have 1. So we can leverage string aggregate. And what I like about string aggregate, you can group by, you can order by. Execute it this way, you will clearly see that I was able to do it. So I would highly suggest you to leverage some of the functions. Most likely people think about advanced, but they never think about what we call basic. Sometimes for you to go advanced, you're gonna have to go with basic. Let me give you a real example. Doing the migration, and then people execute, there's an old legacy. I don't know how they generate their as an identifier. When we migrate the data to a higher SQL server, for some reason, we get people name. Oh yeah, we don't know what's going on. Okay, the developer team go and follow Google if they fail. Okay, so that's a good example. We cannot, there's data type incompatibility. Went to some of the website that can bring us support, they execute this and nothing works. And these are all the advice they got from Google. I asked them, okay, before we open any ticket, how much do you know about, for example, right and left? They said, these are, I said, do you know, for example, right and left support an optional parameter called style? They said, what I mean? I said, if you don't mention style, it is 0. And I showed them it is 0. If you're looking at here, it is 0. That's the reason why. But if I change just for debugging purpose, if I change this guy to 1 and I change this guy to 1, and what I'm telling him, I do not want you to convert anything, leave the data the way it is, and give me the first 5 characters, and I was able to get the job done. Sorry, that should be 5, and then that should be 1. Sorry about that. Yep, if you're looking at here, we were able to get the job done. So sometimes for you to go advanced, I would highly suggest you to know the basic, understand how things work. So these are the things. There's it. I see it's almost time. I'm not going to do this, but what I want to do with you is this one. There's replace. If you're looking at replace, let me execute this. And I was able to get the same work done. You can see fewer code. So instead of replace wherever caveat, and I'm about to tell you what is it. If you're looking at here, I can say welcome to data-driven community. So if I say select, I said replace data-driven community by SQL Star 2022 event. I was able to replace that. And guess what happened? If I say translate this one, guess what happened? And I know you guys probably thinking, you get invalid. Know where to use it, understand. If I go to the last one, I know you guys probably thinking, it's failed. The downside of translate, it has to be the exact same length of character, whereas replace does not have limitation. So if you know translate and replace, well, you will definitively know when to leverage one versus others. Any questions? Okay. Any question? No.
No.
No. Perfect. So now let's see, for example, if you're looking at for data types, sometimes we think our data types, what I like to tell people is understanding, when you're giving people numbers, it may change. What I'm doing here, if you're looking at here, F1 is 0.2, F2 is 0.2, and I'm using float. What I'm saying is that I'm saying, okay, the good result, okay, I'm adding up these two. I got the good result, okay? So guess what happened? I am doing a case statement. Hey guys, especially for data analysis, people, when you're doing some calculation when you're getting some value within your process, if you're looking at here, this gives, because that's the exact value. So knowing the data type you have to use matter. And then if I convert this to decimal, guess what happened? If I convert this both variable to decimal, I got the exact result set. So things you need to know. If you're doing, I have seen, I would highly suggest you to keep it decimal or numeric. Ask the process to start, okay? At 5.0, if I come back here and I check, guys, check this out. I will need to stop this. Why? Because I already passed five something. If you, unfortunately, this one doesn't want. If you're looking at here, I already passed over 5.0. So I will have to stop this process for me to be able to proceed with my presentation. Whereas if I use decimal and I say, if it's different than 5.0 stop, it's gonna go and stop. So see, it is stop. Yeah, it is stop. As long as it is different, knowing the data type, and then there's another thing. What I have seen people done, but even so, I'm gonna do that simple example with you. If you're looking at here, this is a total running, and then business complaint, they said that data does not look real. If you're looking at here, when we run in total, guys, you can clearly see if I got this one. If I add up this one to this one, so the data is messy. If you're using, for example, Windows functions, I would not suggest you, for example, to use the default one, because first of all, there's a penalty. The default one will run on issue. Second of all, you may end up to get wrong data. I can do the same calculation by explicitly mention what I want to do. That's all. Same result set, and I got the right data. If you're looking at this, I got the right data. So this is a real cases. I mean, I don't think I'll be able to do this, to do the last one because I have to finish in 10 minutes and I have all the stuff to discuss. I will share the script. You guys can follow up. So if we're looking at things that I would love to make you understand, for you to be able to advance in SQL Server, you need to know when to use a specific function versus others. When you're dealing with what we call position character, if you're looking for string within a string, you're looking for patterns, you're looking for number of character, you have to think of position functions. So you have to think of character index, you have to think of path index length. When it comes to transformation, there's a tons of them, and I cannot put all of them. Like that's substring, split, string escape. You have to think of a tons of methods like translation, concat, left, right. Okay, but when it comes to character set, if you have to replace empty line, tab, you have to convert Unicode to string, you have to think of character NVAC Unicode. When you're dealing with fuzzy grouping, right, or searching, fuzzy searching, the time when you cannot match data by regular expression, by like, for example, by anything, you have to think of fuzzy searching, like the example we just did. You have to think of. And then what else? I did post me about this event. If you got, I would love you to share your feedback, and then that will help me improve the presentation and also know how satisfied are you. And I hope you get something out of this presentation. Feel free to fill out the feedback form, okay? And then thank you. A reminder, if you guys want to connect with me, feel free to scan this. And if you have any questions, I'm here. I'll be waiting until Sergio let me know it's over. Otherwise, guys, if you don't have any questions, enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you so much.